Border Gateway Protocol is one of the routing protocol, but the other routing protocols, they're not application layer protocol. BGP alone is application layer 7 routing protocol, BGP. So now it's an application layer protocol, but when I say port number 179 for BGP, some tend to ask me question like this. Hey, you said TCP 179. TCP works in layer 4. TCP works in layer 4. Why are you calling BGP as layer 7? Hey, see, the application layer, we have a lot of protocols like Telnet, SSH. Even though they are application layer, they will have port number 22, 23 because they need ID. Likewise, BGP is also an application layer protocol like Telnet. And the protocol needs an identification. Port number 179 is given for BGP. So 179 is a port number reserved to this protocol. Port numbers are given by transport layer. But the protocol is not working in transport layer. It's working in application layer. Whereas this OSPF, EIGRP, they all work in IP layer. They are IP protocols. They use multicast address to discover neighbor. Whereas this application layer protocol works in, means it's a layer 7 protocol. It needs an IP address to do three-way handshake. Which is one of the functions that is carried out before forming neighbor. It's an application layer protocol. I want you to very clear understanding here. It is not a transport layer protocol. Fine. Next is this BGP, as the word says, border gateway protocol. It is very important in the borders, but it is also seen inside autonomous systems. So they don't have same way of treatment or respect or policy, because the most important place where BGP needs to be is border. But in order to extend the network, in order to distribute the networks from outside the autonomous system to the routers within the autonomous system. We use BGP even inside. So there are two names given here to differentiate the function, to differentiate the policy, such as what? Why are you silent? eBGP? No, I asked question. When I ask question also you listen. eBGP and IBGP. So even though it is a border gateway protocol, even though it is meant to be between the autonomous system borders, even though it is more important in the borders, in order to distribute the routes, in order to distribute the routes within, we run BGP within that peering within the autonomous system. We call it as IBGP peering. Okay, so we got IBGP peering, we got EBGP peering. For EBGP, more importance is given. So 20, when you run OSPF and IBGP, OSPF is going to be given more importance, whereas on the border, BGP is given more importance because of the place. Because of the place, the AD value is given like this, so that you can give more importance in EBGP in the borders compared to the within autonomous, compared to IBGP within autonomous system. Fine, anyhow. Even if you don't understand what I say, at least you should know 200 for IBGP and 20 for EBGP. And port number is TCP 179. And it is an application layer protocol. Next. The reason why BGP is so important, is very important, is BGP is highly secure only when we configure neighbor, only when we configure neighbor manually, the neighbors can be configured and discovered. See, when I say discovered, you should not think that neighbors are dynamically discovered. After I configure neighbors manually, it goes and finds the neighbor by sending an unicast packet, which is called as a connection-oriented approach, which is called three-way handshake. That type of neighbor discovery, unicast neighbor discovery, highly secured neighbor discovery. Is TCP secured than UDP? So this is one because of TCP. We call BGP is best between borders. BGP is recommended, highly recommended between borders because we need safety, we need security. When we talk within the autonomous system, you don't need much security, but between autonomous system, we always look for security. Secondly, BGP has got rich attributes. BGP has got attributes. Because of these attributes, we have flexibility of tuning BGP path selection. So according to the policy requirements, according to the need, you can tune the paths with attributes. Very flexible. Without attribute, there will be some criteria. Sorry, with you have attributes without tuning attribute. Still, you will have some criteria matches with the attribute, like AS path or next hop, origin to decide the best path. So still, the attribute is the one which is going to choose the best path. But the difference is attributes, they don't work like metric. Metric works based on how count or bandwidth or delay, whereas BGP never cares about hop count or bandwidth or delay. BGP is worried about only the policy attributes. So when you don't tune attribute, still there is going to be some attribute deciding the best path. Why? Because when a network is advertised from the neighbor to you, that network comes with some attributes in it. See, the important thing is when a network is advertised, it is not simply advertised just the network and the next stop. Along with that, there are a lot of attributes. As you said, origin is one attribute. It's a well-known attribute. Well-known mandatory attribute. AS path is another well-known and mandatory attribute. You see, along with the network, there are a lot of attributes. Yeah. Hmm. Hmm. What was the point I was telling is different. Every router, when they advertise the network info along with the attribute. Because it comes with the attribute, I no need to configure any attribute for the route distribution. If I configure, yes, as per my configuration, the decisions are made. But if I don't configure any attribute, but still the updates can be distributed because there is always some attribute. Even though I don't configure, there is always some attribute coming along with the route advertisement. So attributes are the one here determining the best path. BGP is not designed to do load sharing. Can BGP, sorry, I'm asking you a question. Can RIP do load sharing? But no, you don't know. Can OSPF do load balancing, load sharing? Likewise, all protocol will do that. All protocol. See, this is a very fundamental thing. If the metric is equal, all routing protocol except BGP, all routing protocol will do load balancing except BGP. BGP is not designed to do load balancing. Eh, Okay, BGP is a path vector. So it will always show one particular attribute and say this is the path. The attributes are designed like that. You cannot have load sharing, automatic load balancing. If you need, you can manually match some prefixes and map it to some paths. That is manually you can do load sharing, mapping it. You need to match and map to the paths. There is no automatic load balancing supporting BGP. Next. Configuration in BGP, as I said, we have to manually configure neighbor, but that is just a neighbor command. Remember, we don't use network command to form neighbor. We need to configure manually using the neighbor command. But that neighbor command will not advertise the network of the neighbor. It won't advertise the network. We need to use the network keyword and advertise whatever the network you want to advertise. It's a good thing actually. Why? For example, you see, ten dot one dot zero dot one, 10.1.0.2 slash 172.16.1.1 slash 24, 172.16.1.2 slash 24. Now, when I say here, your neighbor is 10.1.0.2, and here I say your neighbor is 10.1.0.1 and 172.16.1.2. And when I say here neighbor is, when I say this as a neighbor, they are just used to form neighbor. Router 1 will not have 172.16.1.2 as in the routing table. In the routing table, the neighbors network will not be seen. You see, even though these two are neighbors, router 2 and router 3 are neighbors, that neighbors network is not advertised. If you want that network to be advertised, you need to use the keyword network 172.16.1.0 mask 255.255.255.c. Whenever it is not classful, whenever it is classless, you have to mention the prefix length. You need to mention the subnet mask. Is it clear? Now you will find on router 1 I don't know what you are doing. You're not following the class. You already formed a neighbor. You'll see what you will. Oh, why you confused? Neighborship came long back, even before configuring this. When you say neighbor, routing table won't have neighbor. Routing table will have what? Routes to the routes to the destination. So what I'm trying to say is, you already formed a neighbor, but the routes will not be there for that neighbor's network. If you want the routes, you need to specially use the network command. So what I'm trying to say here is, in the other routing protocols, just by writing this command network, the neighbor also come up, network also get advertised, which is not safe. Here, neighbor is there to form only neighbor. Only if I need that network of the neighbor to be advertised, I'll use this command network. So it's a security for me. Whichever the network that I want to advertise, only that I can advertise. I no need to advertise all the networks that is forming neighbor. In OSPF, all the networks that you form neighbor will also get advertised, which you may not be liking. You may not like that in internet scenario, in a big internet environment between the autonomous system. You may not like that. So BGP helps you. BGP says, whichever you want me to advertise, tell me that only I'll advertise. So it's not mandate for us to advertise all the networks that you use to form neighbor. That is separate, this is separate. When you do lab, you will understand this better. You should do lab. When you use the neighbor command, it is not going to be advertised. It is only for neighborship. Okay, next. Before we get into the deep dive of BGP attribute, there are a lot of small topics, which is a fundamental of BGP. I'm saying you that you already have good knowledge on, not good knowledge, okay knowledge on BGP. So I'm not running through the presentation today, but we will be going through the presentation to fill the gaps. Like, there are a few fundamentals. When I say advanced, I mean attributes. When I say fundamental, everything other than attribute is fundamental of BGP. Some fundamentals we have seen today. There are a few more fundamentals that we should focus, which we'll be seeing with the presentation in our next class, like next hop self, update source, eBGP, multi-hop, TTL security, route reflector, configuration. That's it. Peer group. That's it. So all this will come under fundamentals. which I'm going to teach you with the help of presentation. Afterwards, we'll get into attributes. So what you have learned today in BGP? BGP is a application layer protocol. BGP works on port number 179. BGP, because it has got rich metric like attributes, they are more flexible to tune the path according to a policy. So we like to use BGP between the borders where more policy is involved, that we call as eBGP. But to distribute the routes inside the autonomous system, we also extend BGP, but that BGP we call it as IBGP. The administrative distance is 200. Labels are manually configured. Attributes decides the path. It's a path vector routing protocol. Neighbor command will not advertise the network. To advertise, you need special network command. This is providing us the security. How? Only by saying network command you can advertise the network. By using the neighbor command, you can just form neighbor. So all the neighbor that you form will not be advertised. All the neighbors network will not be advertised. Only the network that you want to advertise can be advertised using this network command. Right?